Welcome to Cybertalk's video podcast with myself, Bev Etheridge. Today I am interviewing podcast specialist Claire Morgan-Jones, who created brilliant video casts for Kiss, Kerrang and Q. Welcome to Cybertalk. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Bev.
So how did you get into creating podcasts?
Right, well, I'm a video specialist anyway, who was working mainly in mobile, doing video for mobile handsets. And I moved across into podcasting because they're quite compatible forms of video, both for small devices, both meant to be consumed in short chunks. So I was asked by Kerrang to shoot their first video podcast, which was for their 25th anniversary tour, which was probably around about this time last year. So I've been doing it for about a year. And that's how I got into it, just being asked as a video editor with some experience of shooting for specialist areas of video, such as small device areas.
And so what was your first ever podcast?
Well, it was, as I said, the 25th anniversary Kerrang tour, which was last year, which was at the Brixton Academy. We had several bands, and we interviewed them all backstage and filmed some of the very enthusiastic kids queuing outside, which was really good fun. And learned an awful lot in a very short time about shooting in difficult circumstances and doing it guerrilla filmmaking tactics, basically.
And were there many other podcasts around at the time?
To be honest, I can't honestly remember exactly how many there were, because I just kind of dove straight in and just started doing it. But I think it was still mainly audio. There wasn't that much video podcasting around. I think in the last year that's really exploded. When we started doing it, it was more the era of audio, and Ricky Gervais's audio podcast was the king. It was getting the millions of hits. That was number one all the time, basically.
And I understand that the Kerrang podcast that you produced reached number one in iTunes.
Well, it did, in the music section, albeit, but yes, certainly it reached number one, which is really flattering and very encouraging.
And what's the secret to creating a good podcast?
Well, I think with Kerrang in particular, I think mainly is what are you doing and why are you doing it? You have to think of what kind of audience you're going to be podcasting to, and what they would like to hear. Try and put yourself in their shoes, really. It's like any kind of programming. And I think with Kerrang, it's fairly straightforward because it's very focused on music and a particular culture and a particular lifestyle and a particular age group. You just have to... And it's fairly straightforward insofar as we're going to interview bands, and we're going to film the backstage experience of touring, and you just think about what the fans would like to know about the bands, and usually I think we're veering towards good anecdotes, backstage stories, stuff that people might not know.
So what advice can you give to viewers at home who want to start producing their own podcasts but don't know how?
Well, I think again, as far as subject matter is concerned, it's who are you broadcasting to and what do you think they'd like to see. From a technical viewpoint, if you have one of the recent, modern edition Macintosh computers, then the software package you get with the computer will pretty much see you from start to finish of the whole podcasting process, from capturing your video, to adding sound effects in GarageBand, to turning out a finished podcast through QuickTime, or even making a DVD, so that all the software is compatible, and that is available with the computer if you buy one at the moment. Not quite sure how it works on the PC because I've always used one on Mac, but I'm sure a PC would be able to install a similar sort of software. It's not that difficult now to turn out your own programming, which is a great thing because it makes it accessible for all.
That's brilliant. So what's your favourite podcast that you've produced?
I think it was probably one of the last ones I did for Kerrang, which was again the Kerrang tour, but this year in 2007. And myself and a colleague went over to Dublin to film the bands backstage at the Ambassador Club in Dublin, and it was just because we've been doing it for a year, we've become much more technically savvy and proficient, and become quite a smooth working team. And even though we had to do quite extreme interviewing sessions, we got good audio and good visuals just because we'd learned tricks and learned to anticipate problems brought the right gear as well. So it all helps.
So what is the weirdest location you've ever had to interview someone?
Well, it's mostly just having to, the question of having to adapt to really sometimes quite extreme backstage circumstances where you can't control, especially the audio. The visual stuff isn't so much of a problem because you can always find a way of filming somehow if you're not using artificial light, which we do have an artificial light, but it's not a very strong one, so we tend to rely on natural light. So, but it's more adapting to people screaming and band sound checking, so a lot of noise pollution.
Right.
So learned how to cope with some quite a lot of dirt as well. Extremely dirty backstage, sort of scummy places where the equipment is stored. You're thinking, oh, am I doing this for?
And who is the coolest person you've ever interviewed?
Well, again, because I've podcasting has mainly been centred around Kerrang. I've met a lot of these young Kerrang bands on tour, and most of them are just lovely. They're really lovely people. Yeah. They're funny and they're intelligent. I mean, there's a few who've got a bit of attitude, but they're in the minority generally. These bands are lovely.
Can you give us some examples of names of bands that you've met?
We did a lot of work with a band called Aiden from Seattle in Washington State in the States, and they're really, really nice guys, really enthusiastic, young, and very young, sort of late teens. Yeah. And there's another band called Taking Back Sunday, who are another American band, who are very, very funny, very, very nice to deal with. Always got really good, witty stuff to say. And a Canadian band called Billy Talent, who are just gorgeous as well, really lovely guys.
Yeah. Wow, so you've met quite a few bands.
Quite a few of that Kerrang sort of subculture, So, and they're great because they're very focused on their fans and they're very aware of the kind of role that the fans play in their success. And they're just great. They're very responsive people.
Great. Do you see podcasts being around forever, or is it just a fad?
Well, I think the way things are going, I think with convergence of media, particularly the way that TV, film and computers all seem to be heading towards one box because of all the bit torrenting activity that people are doing now. And I think TV on demand is going to grow, and the whole concept of programming on demand I think is going to grow as well. I think people are going to eventually have tailored films and TV so they can miss out the guff they don't want to watch. And I think podcasting might form a part of this because of the accessibility of the technology now, that people can actually do it for themselves. And I think you'll find, as is already happening, I think people are going to, as opposed to doing maybe a Flickr photo display, they'll probably do a podcast of their trip to the Grand Canyon or their parents' 60th wedding anniversary or a wedding, or all the life events and special things that people do. I think they might want to record much more and podcast to maybe a limited audience, their family and friends. And I think there might be sort of citizen TV as well. I think people might, in the way that YouTube has taken off so spectacularly, I think you'll find podcasting probably going parallel in that. So I think it will be around for a very long time. I hope so as well, because it's got lots of potential for interesting stuff for people to do.
Right. And do you subscribe to any other podcasts?
No, I don't actually. That's really embarrassing and leading to me. I'm only subscribed to the Kerrang one just to check out that it's working.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. But I would like to, because one thing I haven't really done is have a really good delve into video podcasts that other people do. On a, obviously I have had a bit of a delve into the BBC ones and related to sort of mostly kind of other media competitors to Kerrang. Yeah. But I'd like to have much more of a delve and see what other people are doing. Yeah. Because we've mainly sort of forged our own road as far as stylistic and the whole aesthetics of it and the look of it goes. So because it was a success, we didn't really sort of think about changing it too much. So it would be good to have a good delve and get some subscriptions going.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us here at Cybertalk.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, that's all for now. I hope you have found this video podcast useful, and cybertalk.org.uk.